Good morning, all y'all. My name is Robin with Holstein House, and today I'm going to show you my favorite apple pie recipe. And it's a recipe that I've gotten a lot of compliments on, and I'm making it today. I'm going to share it with you, let you see how I make it. I'm making it today to take to a picnic, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be easy, and I want to invite you along with me. First, I want to share with you one of my favorite gadgets. This is an apple peeler. It's kind of hard to see against this black backdrop, but it's not an expensive brand. You don't have to spend a ton of money on it. And I'll show you how I use it. It's got a little cap because these little pointy things are sharp. When it comes in the box, you have to put the handle on and stuff, but it's really, really easy. It's my favorite time-saving device when dealing with apples. And I will show you. Now, if you've ever tried to use one and it didn't stick very well, what I want to share with you is that if you put a little dab of water on a flat surface, now it needs to be really flat. Okay? Just give a little smooch around. Set it down, pull the suction lever. You're going to get a good amount of suction with that, and that will be more than enough to help you get through your apples. I've never had it come undone on me, so I don't know how many apples you could process with this before it comes loose, but anyway, our recipe today is going to call for these are Granny Smith apples. You can use just about any apple, but the Granny Smiths are better. They hold up better when you bake. They have a nice tart flavor. They don't get mushy. You could add a few others to adjust the flavor a little bit, but right now we're going to start with, we need 6 cups of apples. And I don't worry about whether I'm right exactly on 6 cups. So what I'm looking for is how high they mound in the pie. So when you're using this, you see these little tines there. You're going to do your best to center them up because, we're going to back it off. This little lever here releases this spring held tension, and you're going to back it up. Try to get your clip in one of the grooves. It's a little easier. Back it all the way. And you're going to do your best to center your tines around the stem hole so that, now, sometimes it's not that easy because you get a lumpy or bumpy or something apple. It all works out. It's okay. And what this is going to do is as you turn your handle, this is a peeling blade. This is a corer. And you're going to end up peeling and coring at the same time. So you end up with your peel here in a big string. And I'm going to tell you, I have an apple scrap video that I'll try to link to here in a minute that uses these peels. Now, what you need to make sure, obviously, is that they're clean. And I'm going to toss those over in that thing. Then you're going to just slide your apple off the core. Take your little keen knife. And I always remove, there's always a little bit, I don't know how well you can see that. There's always a little bit of the peel left on each end. They don't hurt you or anything, but I don't like them in there. I feel like they give a little too much to the pie. They're a little, I mean, they do cook up, but so then here you've got this. Now what you've got is, sometimes they break, but you've got kind of like a slinky of apples. And to separate those, you just stick your knife through the hole and cut on one side. And now they're separated. You can leave them this way. I use this a lot when I'm dehydrating my apples because this gives a beautiful uniform size to the rings, and they dehydrate beautifully. And then if they need to be chopped, I'll cut them up a couple of times. But honestly, when I'm making this pie, I love to just leave them in their rings. Now, this is a challenge sometimes to get the core off. But sorry for my elbow being in your way. Then you have that. Always the cuckoo clock. And I'm going to do this until all of my apples are finished. Now you see that one, it kind of clogged up right here. I've used this so much that's getting dull. So I'm just going to back it up a little bit and get back on it. There's a little spot right there in the apple, a little bruise. And like I said, it doesn't hurt anything. That bruise you couldn't see under the skin there. Off we go. Take that off. This sometimes just breaks. So you see what I had there. There's a bruise that was under the peel that I couldn't see. And so it got soft. And so when this blade come to it, it come off the skin because of that soft spot. And of course, that's not bad for you. It won't make you sick or anything. So. And I have I'm not throwing these in the floor. I have a bowl over here just off the screen that I'm dropping those in. And see, this one's going to be a little lumpy because it's not perfectly flat on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. And you have that because, you know, it's a natural food. I have to investigate a new blade for this. But I've had this for, gosh, I don't know how many years. It's been a lot of apples go through this. And sometimes I'll tell you, especially if you've got a wobbly apple, an apple that doesn't isn't perfectly round, you may get pieces of the core inside here, and all you just scoop that out with your knife. Doesn't hurt anything. It's not a big deal. I think we get hung up in this world too much on perfection, perfect looking fruit, perfect looking food, and we create an unrealistic expectation in life and that we can't live up to, because there was only one perfect person on this earth, and he was crucified. Now see, this one's a little lumpy too. I don't know how well you can see. That's not perfectly flat. This is the high spot here, so it may give me a little headache, but so much of, I get so flustered watching things on not just TV, but on the YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. You see all these beautiful people. And there's even an app that lets you, it doesn't really even pull in your whole face. It like pulls in your eyes and your nose, and it puts your face on somebody else's face and makes you look beautiful. And you know what? What does that do for it? It tells us that the way we look isn't good enough. Well, that's not true. And then you see all these. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking nice, taking care of yourself, but you know, just getting so dumb. These young people getting their lips blown up to where they look like they've been stung by a wasp. And now this one, let me show you this. This one, the core is probably going to come out funny because here is the flower end, here's the stem end, and let's see. And you see out of whack that is there. It's not a perfect. This one's a little closer to perfect, but you see the difference on the location of the flower end there. It'll be fine. Just if you get a hold of one like that, don't freak out. Don't throw it back. So I can see right now this is not going to line up right. Not a whole lot I can do. So I just will go ahead and take it through. See what it looks like on the other end. Oh, it doesn't look too terribly bad. See? It's pretty. Right there. But for the most part, it doesn't look too bad. I'll cut that out. Our obsession with perfection is going to lead to our destruction. It's just ridiculous today. What we put ourselves through, surgeries to cut out unwanted fat, surgery to make us look perfect, surgery because we're not the right way. Making the surgeons from the hospitals rich, isn't it? It's making the rest of us miserable. Anyway, I'll stay the way I am. People don't have to like it. They can move on to somebody else. I always believe these whole women. Well, never mind. All right, so there's that. Now, if these don't turn out to be exactly enough, and you'll see what I mean in a minute, I'll add some more later. I got a couple more, I think, back in the back. Not the mystery, but the little gap protector. There's a big gap there, and I'm known for spilling stuff in my old age. I spill a lot of stuff. All right, so now just to remove this, the only thing to do is this latch that you can't see where you're at, which caused the suction to begin with. When you turn it back this way, it didn't work. You just break the section. And then make sure you rinse that and wash that off because the stickiness of the apple juice can not only draw ants, but it can, and the acid of the apple juice, it can also corrode your equipment there. So there's that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I've got here. And what I've got, this is 3/4 cup sugar. Now this is an unbleached or unrefined and natural sugar. I don't always buy this. You don't need it. Plain white sugar is fine. I used all my plain white sugar on some other stuff, and I had bought this on sale. It was a fair price, and it's okay. So it doesn't have to be this. It can be white sugar. So this is 3/4 of a cup sugar. 2 tablespoons of flour, all-purpose flour. My ground cinnamon, we've got 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Nope, this is it. And then a quarter teaspoon of salt, and an eighth of a teaspoon of nutmeg. So cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, flour, I'll tell you why in a minute, and sugar. That's what we got right there. Now, I do also have, this is a tablespoon of lemon juice. You can use the kind in the bottle. If you get a hold of a regular lemon, just, snip the end of it off and squeeze out into a tablespoon measure. We're going to put all those together here in just a second. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mix my dry ingredients. I'm going to just mix them in this little bowl here. These 2 things. And I want you to know, anything you see me using probably came from a thrift shop. Now, my apple peeler did not, and this plastic bowl did not. It's a 3-piece set. This came from a thrift shop. All these custard dishes came from a thrift shop. These came from a thrift shop, and I'll show you my pie plates. Most of them came from a thrift shop. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mix all the dry ingredients. Now, the flour you may be confused by. If you've never made a fruit pie, you use some flour or some type of thickening agent. In this recipe, it's flour. It could be cornstarch. You could use an alternative that doesn't have gluten. I'm not much on gluten-free. It doesn't bother us. So, but I'm going to mix all my dry ingredients. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to change some of these measurements because of taste. You may think, oh, that's got too much cinnamon. I like more nutmeg. It's too much salt for me. Too much sugar. You can try alternative sugars like Splenda or stevia and that type of thing. You just have to experiment and find out what works. And the reason I mix these up, the dry ingredients, is so they're not lumpy when they go on the apples, so that they're evenly distributed. And then I'm going to put my lemon juice on the apples like this. Okay? Because they're wet. The apples are wet, the lemon juice is wet. And I'm just going to mix it around. The lemon juice gives a little tart to the flavor, and it also helps with the coloring of the apples. And when you're doing home canning, you treat your fruit so that it doesn't turn brown in the jar, because again, it looks awful if it's turned brown. It doesn't mean it's bad for you or anything. And I'm also going to break these up. Some of you may be losing your mind. Oh, you don't have gloves on. You don't need gloves if you're cooking something anyway. This is going to cook out any diseases. My hands are clean. Always have clean hands when you're cooking. You don't want to introduce anything weird. If you're paranoid about it, you can use gloves. All right, and something else you need to know about the way I cook. I do not make good pie crust. I absolutely do not make good pie crust. And although I may try to make, work on practice for here at home, because we're taking this to a picnic. It's actually a memorial picnic for a friend of ours that passed away. I don't want to have a crappy crust. So I do use store-bought crust. I do use them. No problem with them. The thing about them, and I don't, we're not pastry chefs at places that serve $10,000 meals. So I don't get wound up about these things. If you use a mixer to mix up cake mix, or food, or anything, if you use a bread baker, if you use anything like that, any tool, you shouldn't look down your nose at other people who use alternate tools. Now, the pie crust isn't a tool, it's an ingredient. It's part of the big thing. But you're saying, oh my gosh, you put that on the counter? Yes, the counter was clean already. There shouldn't be any issue with how you decide. I didn't grow the apples, you know, I didn't grow the cinnamon. I didn't evaporate salt water to get the salt, so it's not that much different. What I'm going to do though is I am going to use a tin. This is a thrift shop too. It is obviously a pie plate. It's going to be a little bit shallow, but I'm going to use this one because, yeah, I got it at a thrift shop. It's not an expensive pie tin, and if it gets forgotten, it gets forgotten. I won't be crying about it. If somebody wants to take the pie home, what's left, they can take it in this. It's no big deal. My glass plates, that's a different story. Or ceramics if I have ceramic plates. But this one is no big deal. We've got the oven preheated to 425. And the timing of the cooking is going to depend on your pie plate. This is a dark colored Pyrex pie plate. This is a clear Pyrex pie plate. These may take a little longer to cook the pie because the Pyrex is thicker. The darker ones tend to hold heat a little more. So if you're using, you may find that if you use different types of pie plates, the pie tins, your cooking time is different. So you've got to always watch it. This aluminum pie tin is going to heat up pretty quickly. So it's going to cook the pie pretty quickly. So I need to watch out. I need to watch it. Now, this is the secret that I'm going to show you. Not really a secret. I'm going to put a little bit of flour in the, I'm going to put a little bit of flour in the bottom of this pie tin. And it's going to help not only keep the crust from sticking, it's also going to help the crust brown really nicely. I'm not going to dump that out. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm just going to try to get it spread out a little bit. Now, when you're using store-bought pie crust, you want to take it out of the refrigerator a little while before so that you can unroll it. If you watch me unroll this, as I got towards the part that was rolled closest to the center, it was really still cold. So I've got a couple little cracks right there. A little dab of water and a little mash there will help that. I'm not that worried about it. Again, I'm not worried about it. I'm not into the perfection myth. So I'm going to lift this up. And I did have that, about half, to try to get it in the pie plate more evenly as best I can. I'm not folding it into quarters because sometimes I'll roll these up on a rolling pin if they've gotten really warm. Pastry, especially pie crust stuff, need to be kept cool as much as possible. So I'm getting this distributed here. All right, so here we got this. I'm not squashing. I am patting. I'm trying to pat it down, trying to even it out a little bit. And now our dry ingredients, what I'm going to do, I love doing it this way. I'm going to put some of this in the bottom, like this. That gets some of that great flavor in the bottom. Doesn't have to be perfect. Then I'm going to layer my apples. Now, the first row or so I'm going to do intentionally. I'm going to do it like this to try to make sure I've got apples up against the sides, just so they're evenly distributed, just so everybody gets a bite of the apple, you know. All right. Then, now my hands are wet, so I don't want to get cinnamon stuck all over my hands. Then I'm going to sprinkle it. And I'm going to keep doing this layering thing. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to make sure they're sort of even. Because when you sprinkle your dry ingredients over them, it helps distribute evenly. I don't have my second crust unrolled yet, but that's all right. And just a few more left. The fun part about this is as the pie bakes and the crust gets warm and settles down across the apples, it gives a nice lumpy look to the pie. So it looks nice and full. I could have gone with another apple or two. I think this will be just a little tap to get some of the good stuff down in there. I want to try to make sure that all of my apples are inside the pie tin, because when we put the top on the crust, we want to make sure we get a good seal. And another pie crust here. Now you might think, well, why don't you just roll that out across the top of the pie? I could, but what may happen here is like this inner part, it's going to take longer to warm, and I don't want it too warm, but it's going to be colder in the middle, so this dough is going to be stiffer. And I know I can't zoom in and show you, but I've got a little bit of crack here, which is just like we had before. And you can put a little dab of water on your finger and mash those back, or don't use too much, or you'll make your pie crust up. If you make a great pie crust, oh, I envy you. I really do. But I just never could. I've tried all the little tricks. Oh, some people say, oh, I use a little lemon, I use a little vinegar, I use a little this, I use a little that. And it's wonderful, but it just doesn't work for me. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to brush a little bit of water along the edges, and you can use your finger if you don't have one of these fancy little brushes. I do suggest, though, if you use a regular brush with bristles, regular synthetic or even natural bristles, have a dedicated one for water because you'll never get those perfectly clean. And so the point of that is, and I'm putting this the inside. As I unrolled it, I'm putting the inside, what was on the inside, to the inside of the top. It's just one of those things that I do. My inner Sheldon Cooper. And one of the things, when you do the water on there, you get a pretty good seal, so you're not going to be able to scoop this around very much at all. So something else that I like to do is just put a little, and I'm not mashing that down hard, I'm just putting a little dip in the pie crust up against the apples, the filling. Doesn't have to be apples, can be whatever. And I'm going to use my fork. You can pinch these. I have better luck with a fork. And it gives a little decoration. And it also helps seal the two crusts. So we've got the little bit of water in there holding it still. And we'll use this, the fork's tines to mash it in there. And you don't want to mash it clear down to the where you're putting a hole in it. But you do want to get it sealed up. And then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to trim this edge. And I'm going to feel for the edge of the pie tin. Now this one doesn't have a lip on it. Some of my pie tins have, or pie plates, they're usually the Pyrex ones, have a little thumb lip thing there, handle kind of thing, which makes doing this kind of a challenge because you got to cut that thing too. But with these round ones, you can keep your knife up against the pie plate or pie tin, whatever you're using. I tend to call these pie plates and this a pie tin for obvious reasons. You can do something with make decorations out of your extras. I don't do that. I'm not that creative. I've always wanted to be. I've always thought I'd love to be able to make all kinds of those little designs. But the more you work your pie crust, the tougher it gets. So you don't want to do as much. So all I'm going to do, now you do need some vent holes because you need that steam to get out of there. I'm going to cut a few vent holes, 4 usually. You notice I'm not going deep. I'm just getting the crust cut so that steam can escape while this thing is cooking. And that's it. So it was less than probably, I don't know, it was less than a half hour to get it put together. And I'm going to put it in a 425 oven. And I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to set my timer about 10 minutes early. So if I'm going to go 45 minutes, I'm going to set my timer for 30. Then I'm going to look at it and decide, especially because this aluminum pie tin will transfer heat really quick. So this may only take a half an hour. So that's all I'm going to set my timer for. The recipe actually calls for 40 to 45 minutes, but I'm telling you, when you're doing this stuff, there's some science to it, yes, but there's a lot of wiggle room in a lot of things. So there's some art to it as well. So into my 425 oven, it's going for half an hour, and I will be back with you then. All right, it's time to check the pie. The timer's about to go off. I can smell it. It smells wonderful. That's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? The crust edges are a little dark, but you'll have that. They do make little edge covers that you can put on. I've had some luck with those, but they kind of flop around and they fall off sometimes. So I try to just watch. But look at that, and it smells so good. So this is going to set and cool. Obviously, it's going to set and cool for at least 24 hours because our picnic is Sunday. But I can already tell just because I've made so many of these, this is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. It smells wonderful. It's nice and brown all the way around. And see those lumpy bits? See how you get that with those rings. Now that's where the pie crust has softened and laid across those apple rings in there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I wish I could take you with me. I may make another one so that I can cut it and show you, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And so we're gonna set it here and let it cool. Turn the oven off. And thank you for joining me. And thank you for being a part of it. And I'd love to hear your comments, love to read your comments and tell me what you think of the recipe. If you tried it, I think share any tips that you may have if you make an apple pie yourself. And I'd just love to hear some more from you. So from me to you, thanks for being here, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.